Hello there, welcome to Bryan Lomax Movie Talk and my review of Man of Steel. I never reviewed this film on my channel, which is kind of bizarre. I did a commentary on it a while back, but figured it was time, what with the 31 on 31 that we've got coming up at the end of this month. But also because I'm going to give it away straight away, right out the gate. I love this movie. Okay, I think most of this review is going to be a defense of this movie because I think 2.9 on Letterboxd this film has 2.9. I think that is ridiculous. Quite frankly, I think that is hate for the sake of hate. And I speak to so many people as well within the YouTube community, on Facebook, on my film friends, who love this movie as well. And if they don't love it, they still like it quite a lot. And I feel like some of the criticisms they have are valid from a subjective point of view, just based on taste, but not necessarily from a narrative point of view. Everyone knows the story of Superman at this point, last son of Krypton, sent to Earth, Christ allegory, although Moses allegory, depending on which way you look at it, because the creators of Superman were of course Jewish, so it's more likely they were looking at Moses rather than Christ. But either way, biblically speaking, Moses is a pointer towards Christ anyway, so it's neither here nor there. We have a Christ allegory, we've got that typical Superman story of him going to Earth, being raised by the Kents, being taught, morality, a sense of morality from a really good, loving father and mother. And then Zod arrives and all hell breaks loose. So, first of all, I think they do a really great job with the world that they've built, the several worlds actually that they've built. We get a really good look at Krypton from the start. I think Russell Crowe is fantastic as Jor-El, but also I love that world, and quite frankly, I could have stayed there longer. I think I look at Krypton in this film and I think very much reminiscent of Avatar in that it's just beautiful to look at. Everywhere you turn, you're looking at a painting, and if nothing else, and I'm sure everyone, even the critics, would agree with me here, Zack Snyder knows how to do visuals. Some people think that's all he knows how to do. I disagree, but one thing you can't say about this film is that it looks horrible. It doesn't. It looks absolutely stunning. It looks beautiful. Some of the images are just absolutely incredible. It is one of those films where you can turn the sound off and get quite a lot of enjoyment from it just from the visuals. But what I love about this movie is it takes the approach of like an alien invasion kind of movie. You think movies like Independence Day, or you go back further to the B movies of the 1950s, all those sci-fi movies, Day the Earth Stood Still, things like that. I love that. I love that this is essentially a science fiction movie. It plays heavily towards the sci-fi aspects of the character of Superman. And what it is about is a man who has to choose between two worlds. He's born of one world, but he's raised by another. But which one is he going to pledge his allegiance to? We'll go to the elephant in the room, which is the climax, in which everyone always berates the film for just being a complete action fest. I don't necessarily agree with that. Like I say, this is one of those things where, from a subjective standpoint, I can understand it. So I watched this film just last night with my wife, and I told her beforehand about the criticisms of the film. Everyone says, the action at the end just gets too much. And so she got up to the point where basically Superman stopped the world engine. He saved the world, saved the whole world, despite the fact that people often say that Superman's too destructive in this and never does anything, doesn't help anyone. He saves the whole world. So there's a reason to look at him as a hopeful figure, if nothing else. We got up to the point where they've stopped the world engine. And my wife thought it was ending at that point. But then obviously Zod comes in and they have the final showdown. Now for her, she thought that final showdown was when it got a bit too much. She thought up until that point, when she thought it was going to end, she thought, I don't get the criticism. I don't understand why people have said this is like an action fest. She did say, however, that she felt that the fight with Zod was a little bit unnecessary. So from a subjective standpoint, I can understand why somebody might say, yeah, it's a bit too much action. However, I personally love that end fight scene. I think it's earned, so to speak. It's wanted. You know, Zod's the big bad. You kind of want to see your big hero go up against your big bad. But more to the point, it kind of gets to the crux of the film, which is that Clark has to make his decision here in front of the world. Now, there's a moment on the ship just before Clark brings it down where he says Krypton had its chance, and he, you know, uses his heat vision to bring the ship down. But nobody sees that. Humanity doesn't see that. Whereas what we get in that's Superman making a choice right there. That actually, you know, Krypton had its chance, and with humans, but here it's taken to the next level. It's taken to the extreme where actually it's not enough for Superman to vocally make that choice. He's literally got to decide, and Zod is making him decide. Look, you either kill me or you let humanity die. You've got to. That's how grave the decision is, and Superman has to make that choice to kill essentially the last of his kind that he could share, you know, his heritage with, whatever, or let humans die. And he goes with the humans. He holds on to his humanity side of things, but having to do so by killing Zod. Now, I think that's a great decision, personally. I know that Zack Snyder had to fight to get that when Christopher Nolan, who is my favourite director of all time, he didn't want Zod to die. So Snyder had to convince him, and he did, and he won out. And I think he made the right choice. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, Superman doesn't kill, you know, he would never do that, which is nonsense. I'm sorry, but if you've read the comic books, Superman has killed. You know, when it's been absolutely necessary, you look at Doomsday, he fought to the death. With Doomsday, he killed Doomsday because he recognised that Doomsday was not going to stop, okay? He wouldn't stop, period. And that's what we get with Zod in this. He literally says that to Superman. You know, when he's got his heat vision going at this family, Superman's got him around the neck. Zod is literally there saying, I will not stop. As far as I'm concerned right now, this is my mission to wipe out humanity. It ain't going to stop. So you either kill me or you let me do my business. So that is no different to me to Doomsday in the comic books. And yet people have a major problem with Superman killing, all right? Same with the destruction, okay? You know, like people are always going on about how, Superman's all over the place, throwing Zod through buildings and crashing into them with reckless abandon. And it's like, again, it's a criticism for me that doesn't hold up, because have you seen the comic books? You know, look what he does with Doomsday in the Doomsday storyline. They're smashing through buildings. There's loads of times in the comic books when Superman and an enemy he's fighting are tearing through buildings and whatnot, and nobody bats an eyelid. And they say, oh, well, Superman should have taken Zod into space. At one point he does do that. It doesn't last long because, quite frankly, if you haven't noticed, Superman is getting his ass handed to him for most of that fight scene. It's not simply as easy as saying, I'm just gonna take you up to space, Zod. You know, let's take you up to space and we'll fight there. If Zod doesn't want to go up to space, he's not going to let him take him up to space that easily. So it's not a case of saying, oh, you should just take him up there, take the fight somewhere else. It's not that easy when the other person, you know, wants to keep it where it is. So it just, to me, those criticisms are absolute nonsense. Okay, so if you want to say that there's a bit too much action at the end, and that's a subjective thing, that you just, you know, like, personally you don't like that much action, that's a fair criticism. I get that. I've got no problem with that. But all the hate that gets piled on the film for the various bits of action and whatnot, it makes no sense to me. People holding on to this Christopher Reeve idea of who Superman is, again, it's nonsense. It's just, I've read the comic books. That ain't who Superman is. You know, he's changed. He's morphed over the years. He's had different iterations. This is one of them. I love the Richard Donner Superman. I love Christopher Reeve in the role. but I love Henry Cavill's Superman as well. And I think this film has something to say. It goes a bit deeper, and I credit Snyder for that. What I also love about the climax, about really the last hour, is that it isn't just Superman who's saving the day. This is literally a team effort between humanity and Superman. It is about them coming together. You know, one of the criticisms later on with Batman v Superman is all about how, you know, why is the world so, you know, up in arms that Superman's died? They've got no reason to love him because he trashed Metropolis and all this. And it's like, are you actually paying attention to what he's done here? Again, like I say, saved the world, but also done it in tandem with humanity. You know, there are characters here that, you know, work for the military and whatnot who are there to bear witness to the fact that, yeah, Superman is a hero. Without him, they couldn't have done it. But like I say, the fact that everyone gets to play a part, you know, like you got Superman taking on this machine down on one part of the planet, and then you've got Lois and Emil Hamilton and this military general guy taking on the ship on the other part of the planet. And so like that military guy, for example, I don't know the character's name, but he gets a really good arc throughout the film. So he starts off really distrustful of all the aliens, Superman included. You know, when Superman starts to have a showdown with Feora and this other big guy in Smallville, he's like, yeah, just concentrate fire on the aliens and wipe them out. Just try and kill them. Superman included. You know, he's got no qualms with taking down Superman as well, because as far as he's concerned, they're all a threat. And then it's through the actions of Superman in that fight, you know, saving him from Feora, saving another guy who falls out of a helicopter, despite the fact that people always say that Superman never saves anyone in this film. Yeah, he grows to appreciate who Superman is, what he stands for, and, you know, he sees him as not the enemy. You know, he says that this man is not the enemy, and from that point on, he starts to work with him. But again, he gets to be a major part of that action. He is the one who downs the ship, obviously with the help of Lois and Emil Hamilton when they put the key into Clark's spaceship, the ship that he came to Earth in with the Phantom Drive. He's the one who, you know, plows the plane into the ship that basically takes down all the Kryptonians. So I love that. I love that he gets an arc. I love that we're seeing it from a very human perspective as well. You know, it's not just the humans all need saving, Superman does it all. And I think that's what you normally get with most comic book movies. The hero does it all, you know. Maybe they have one sidekick, one human sidekick, usually a girlfriend, you know, usually a love interest who helps out. But here, no, it's literally a huge team effort, and that never really gets mentioned with regards to Man of Steel, just how big the scope is with regards to who is just involved in this. I really love Lois as a character in this film as well. I think she's a bit more proactive, a bit more, shall we say, useful than, say, the Lois of the Christopher Reeve era, who is kind of there to be a damsel in distress. Whereas here, no, Lois is a very essential part of bringing down Zod and his ship and his cronies. So yeah, Jor-El kind of imparts the information to her, which she then gives to Superman, but is then also complicit in the plan that you know, again, requires multiple people to be involved. I also like the investigative reporting that she does. Given that she's an investigative reporter, I like that she is traveling the world, investigating these stories of this man, this hero who, you know, has become like an urban legend, and eventually tracks down Clark Kent, you know, and figures out that Clark Kent and Superman are one and the same. Even before he becomes Superman, to be honest. So I like that. It shows that she is a journalist worthy of a Pulitzer Prize. You know, we often hear about Lois Lane being this Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, and yet all she seems to do is get into trouble and need saving. Whereas here, she's very proactive. She's good at her job. She's tenacious, and she's obviously played by my favourite actress, Amy Adams, which goes a long way, which really helps. So yeah, I like Lois here. I think she's a valuable character. I think she's essential to the story. And I think that the way that her and Clark grow close together over the course of the film is very organically done. You know, she shows trust in him. She she doesn't sell him out when she finds out who he is, which allows him to grow trust in her. So yeah, I think their relationship's really well handled. I think the character itself is really well handled, and probably my favourite Lois Lane in the movie universe, or even the TV universe. I think we'd need a few more go-arounds before I can be, fully on board with that, because I'm a bit of a Erica Durance fan from Smallville, but she got hours and hours of television to flesh out that character. So yeah, Amy Adams is Lois Lane, cracking stuff. A lot of people think that the religious symbolism in the film is quite heavy-handed. Personally, I think it's appropriate. I think that when you are dealing with a figure as powerful as Superman, a godlike figure, someone with that much power, I think you need to deal with that stuff. I think you need to deal with the impact that would have on humanity of this guy coming to Earth, and that's very much what this film is concerned with, and you look at Clark's mum and dad, Jonathan Kent and Martha Kent. Jonathan is very much aware of that, and there is a moment in the film when he does call that out to Clark, and even later on when Lois is investigating Clark and she's thinking about running with a story before she properly gets to know him and whatnot. Eventually she buries it, and even though Perry White smells something fishy, Lawrence Fishburne, by the way, excellent as Perry White, my favourite Perry White. He pretty much said he knows something suspicious. He knows that she wouldn't just give up on something that easily, but he thinks it's the right thing for her to drop it. And he says, because how would the world react, if they knew this guy existed? That's one of the, main things about the film is this reaction to this alien coming to Earth. This guy's got so much power, this godlike figure. And then obviously it becomes a choice for Clark between, as I say, his race or humanity. And there's a scene with a priest when he goes into this church and he's talking with the priest, and he doesn't really know what he should do, because Zod's come to Earth. He wants Clark, he wants this Kryptonian, Kal-El, and essentially Clark at this point still isn't sure who to side with. Does he give himself up, or does he leave humanity to it, kind of thing? And you kind of understand that, given the amount of hate that he's been subjected to through his lifetime. It isn't all cozy with humanity. This isn't one of those stories in which, Clark loves all human beings and thinks they're absolutely grade A people. No, he recognises their faults. He recognises that actually they may not be a people worth saving. There's times during the film, and that's something that's carried on later in Batman v Superman, where he's doubtful whether actually siding with humanity would be the best thing, and it's the response of the priest to say that, well, sometimes you got to have a little faith before you see the results of it, so to speak. So again, it's that step of faith which is then rewarded. You can't get the reward until you take that step of faith. And what the priest is saying there is, don't give up on us. Have faith in humanity, that we're not all a bunch of arseholes, basically. And again, that pays off at the end. At the end, when Superman chooses humanity, he chooses to have faith in the people that he's been raised with. And again, that goes back to the whole Christ allegory, which is that, Christ came to save a people that perhaps about it, weren't worth saving. And yeah. So again, that's there if you want to read into it, but you don't have to if you don't want to. Going back to Jonathan Kent and Martha Kent for one moment, I love the actors that they get for these roles. Kevin Costner, I think, is someone who's a bit underrated. Although he did get quite a lot of kudos for this role, I think a lot of people did like him. But I've liked Kevin Costner in many things. I think you know, the early 90s kind of hurt him a bit when he became stratospheric with regards to box office, only to plummet with Waterworld and Postman, and yeah, kind of didn't really recover so much from it, although has done respectable work since. But no, I like Kevin Costner. I think he brings a lot of gravitas here, and I think he brings a lot of heart. You know, he's Martha and Jonathan are the heart and soul of Clark. You know, they are the wisdom and yeah, the emotional kind of core of what makes Clark who he is. Without them, he could be a monster. Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL's score for this is incredible. Absolutely incredible. This is my favourite score of all time. It's kind of tied between this and the Tron Legacy score by Daft Punk, but I alternate between those two scores. But if I was called on it, if I was, you know, gun to my head and that, I would probably go with this one. Yeah, I hear that Superman theme and it's just epic. It gets me so jazzed up. I just like, yeah, I love it. I absolutely love it. I think great job. I know John Williams' score for the original Superman film is held in such high regard, and I think certainly it's more instantly memorable, I would say. But once you've heard that Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL score a few times and you've really soaked it up and let it sunk in, it's an amazing piece of work, and I love it. And I think I do think it's better. I think it's a better score, personally. Like I say, it's the one I always go to. I think it's got a lot of power to it, a lot of emotion. Incredible job from those composers. I love how we see Clark kind of learning about himself, learning about humanity when he kind of goes on the road, you know, after his father dies. He goes out and he explores the world, tries to find out what his purpose is, and can't help himself from, just saving people, getting into the action, helping people out, and like I say, building up this legend about this strange wanderer. But yeah, it just keys us into who this guy is as a person. He can't help himself, you know. He is a symbol of hope. He is someone who is going to be there to help people. Again, another criticism of the film is just that the Superman in this film just doesn't offer enough hope. I just don't see that. I don't see it at all. He's saving people left, right and centre, and again, saves the entire world at the end of the film. So it makes no sense to me at all why people can't see why humanity at this point would create a monument to this guy. So in case you haven't guessed already, as if I haven't made it abundantly clear, I love this film. I think it's one of the most underrated comic book movies of all time. I think it's the best interpretation of Superman that we've had on film. Yeah, I love it. Cavill's great in the role. Long may he continue in the role. We're on shaky ground at the minute, aren't we? But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, he is Superman. I love this film, and I give it a 5 out of 5. It's gotten better for me over the years. The more I watch it, the more cemented I become in my opinions of it. But what can I say? I'm sure I will get an abundance of comments about all the things that I've already explained. The criticisms I always hear, which make no sense to me, but feel free to repeat them yet again, as many people do, as if it's going to be any different to the arguments I've just made. I want to know what you think. Please comment down below what you think about Man of Steel. I know this is a film that's been talked to death at this point. It is quite an old film now, but I still want to know what your thoughts are. So let me know. Thank you for watching this video, and until next time, cracking.